that existence, the physical universe, is basically playful. There is no necessity for it whatsoever. It isn't going anywhere. That is to say, it doesn't have some destination that it ought to arrive at.
This is Keep Your Hat On, a show by three nerdy nobodies about nothing in particular. Keep Your Hat On is brought to you by the Narrowband Broadcast Network, NBBN. The focus is on you. By PodSquadPDX.com, painless podcasting. And by our currently non-existent supporters through Patreon. Patreon. Create on your own terms. On this episode, Andrew talks a good game. Robert has some bad news for our friends in the land down under. And Chris schools you all with a nice bowl of word salad. I'm your disembodied announcer, Michael Brumage, and now let's get whatever the hell this is started. Here are your hosts, Andrew, Robert, and Christ. Wow, you guys booked JC himself? It's Chris.
Hello and welcome to Keep Your Hat On, the show where, well, hell, we don't even know where we're going to wind up. I'm Andrew Scott, along with my good friend Chris Vicano and my other good friend Robert Anthony. And hi, we're new here. How are you? We're just here to, frankly, have a good time, try to be better human beings, and get through both this thing that we call life and this thing that we call what? The pandemic, social isolation. Regardless, how are y'all doing today, Robert? Yeah, what was that?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah?
I'm doing all right. Hanging in there.
Chris?
I'm doing pretty good. I just, it's funny. I woke up this morning and, a couple weeks ago we had that big snowstorm here in Portland.
Oh, yeah, that's right. By the way, hey, welcome to Portland, Oregon, where we all three are. Anyways, carry on, Chris.
Yeah, so we had that big snowstorm and, I know I mentioned to you guys that I thought I had bruised a rib or pulled a muscle or something like that. Yeah. Well, I never got to see a doc. I just kind of let it heal on its own.
Because we don't get to do that right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that came under the heading of, no, I can tough this out. But I woke up this morning and it was still twinging. And it's 2 weeks later?
Yeah.
I'm just like, it's not as bad as it was. It's definitely healing. But so that was one of those things. And it's just, it's more proof positive to me that getting older doesn't get easier.
No, it doesn't. And, I've been so careful through the pandemic. Of course, now we're coming up on the year anniversary of us going into lockdown. Of the three of us, I'm the one that wound up in the emergency room back last summer. And I still don't know what the hell that was about, but I am fine. Didn't get the Rona. Yeah, it's still weird. And we're here to be weird.
Hey, you know what the difference between this last year of isolation and this week of isolation because of the snow and the rain, freezing rain?
By the way, just to catch people up, we got socked with a huge ice storm here in the Pacific Northwest, particularly in Portland, which shut us down, and me and mine were without power for 7 days.
Yeah, that really sucked. That was one major difference.
It really kind of sucked. But anyways, yeah, Robert, go on.
For my household anyway.
And you had power the whole time.
Yeah. And for those of you guys that don't know, a day of snow literally shuts this town down.
Oh, an inch of snow is snowpocalypse.
Yep.
And we were so incapable of handling an actual ice storm.
This was a week of being hammered with it, and we got, I'd say, a good foot down here on the valley floor. We're only 50 feet above sea level.
Oh, yeah, so same. Yeah, over here on our side of town,
slammed.
Too. Yeah.
We got slammed.
Well, and again, it wasn't just the snow. Yeah, we got a foot of snow. But after that snow, And again, I'm a Wisconsin boy. Chris is from parts in Colorado at times.
Colorado.
My old man used to have a saying: "Snow is pretty and ice kills." And that was true. And that's, when I heard that we were headed for an actual ice storm, I kind of went into emergency preparedness mode. And unfortunately, yes, I did get a small propane camping stove. But as Robert well knows, I did not actually have the propane to use said camping stove. So I was making coffee every morning on Sterno cans. We got socked. It was the largest power outage in Oregon history. At one point in time, we had 650,000 people without power. And honestly, I think there might still be a few people in outlying areas without power. That's how much damage was caused by the ice storm.
And we're, even with all those people out of power, we are so much more fortunate than the folks in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
because at least we have a publicly owned power utility that's not going to screw us over when the lights come back on.
Yeah. But what the big difference in my house that I found is, so over the year of isolation, it's like, oh, what are we going to do this weekend? Oh, nothing. And then we just complain about how there's nothing to do. Over this last week, over this week of snow, and that was like 2 weeks ago, over this week of snow, we didn't even fight that. We didn't even complain.
No, we've been practicing this for a year.
There's no place to go. There's nothing to talk about. We can't even get out of the flippin' driveway. Let's just sit here and cuddle on the couch.
There you go. Yeah, read a book. Oh my God, a book. Yeah, and it was a little bit more challenging. Chris had power.
You're the non-readers out there,
right? Yeah.
Yeah. I was only out for 16 hours at the beginning of the storm, and got my power back, and it stayed back.
Yeah, and Chris lives just down the street from me, and Chris and I and our family together, we share people in a family. We won't go further into it than that right now. But we have a COVID-safe bubble between Chris's house and my house, and Chris is only about 7 blocks away. However, I was literally in the middle of doing work for a client and just finished one and was literally within 5 minutes of finishing work for the other client, and the power went out again, and it stayed out. And so I'm in an absolute panic. My client is on the East Coast going, where'd you go? And long story short, Chris hosted my partner and I to his wonderful, tasty electric juice for about 4 days so that we could keep working until our power came back on. But yeah, Robert, I think you're right. This is a weird new skill. And again, having grown up in Wisconsin in the 70s and 80s, I also had old development muscle on what to do when there's nothing to do. But it makes me itchy. I'm not a person who can just sit and do nothing unless I'm, I'll say, interestingly, unless I'm sitting there and doing nothing on purpose. And Robert is going to chuckle about that internally because he knows what I mean. But yeah, the weather's crazy. Politics are crazy. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about politics on this show, folks, I promise, because we want to be the alternative. We want to be something else that you can enjoy. And
there's enough of that out there. Why add more noise?
Well, and that's just it. There's commentary and then there's noise. And I'm not a fan of noise. I don't think any of us are fans of noise. And so we don't want to contribute to the noise. We want to contribute to the culture and give people a place to come and hang out, feel like they're hanging out with friends. We'd like to be your friends. And we're just going to try to have...
Won't you be my neighbor?
Right? Well, careful. I think that's trademarked. Yeah, just give you an alternative to just come and hang out and nerd out with us. We are all nerds of either a different or a similar feather, and we're just going to try to have some fun. But first up, I think we're going to dive a little bit into something that we call...
Word salad.
All right, Chris, it's time for word salad. What do you got for us today?
All right. So for word salad, there are terms out there, and I'm sure you've run into this, from time to time, or that you've got some of these terms that just sort of float around, and they're part of the common vernacular, and you hear them all the time, and you get a sense of what they mean, but you don't really know what they mean or where they came from. And one of these has been sort of sticking in my brain, and it was sparked by a documentary series I've been watching recently on Hulu. And it prompted me to actually go look the term up and learn about it and educate myself about it, because it was this term that had just sort of always been there, right? And it's just part of the vernacular and part of our culture. And that's the term third world. I mean, do you guys have any stab at a guess for what third world is, or where it came from?
Well, I'm gonna pull the curtain back and say we all know, because we tried to do this show last week and we failed miserably. But
it's not a first world.
It's not
a second world,
and it's not a fourth world.
And it's not a fourth.
Okay.
So
there you go.
All right.
Okay.
We all know what it's supposed to stand for. It's supposed to stand
Right.
for a grubby place that nobody in the Western world wants to go.
Right. And that's actually inaccurate. That sort of came later.
Mhm.
The origin of third world was actually in an article published in 1952 by a French demographer named Alfred Sauvy. And it was an article called Three Worlds, One Planet. And, you think about it, 1952, Cold War era. And what he sort of outlined was that the first world was the United States and its capitalist allies. And
You mean the winners of World War II?
Sort of the European, Western Europe, the United States, industrially developed nations that embraced capitalism and big D, I'm sorry, big L liberalism, the philosophical movement of liberalism. Right. Then the second world, which has really fallen out of use and never really caught on anyhow.
I cannot recall a time where I heard the use of the term second world in any actual real setting.
Right.
So
neither can I. But it was a term, and he described it as Sauvy described it as the USSR at that time, and the other nations, the Eastern Bloc nations around them that were industrialized but embraced communism, Marxism, and were basically in Cold War opposition to the West. And so the third world essentially was primarily Southern Hemisphere countries, primarily African and Asian. And they were the countries that were not aligned with either Western style capitalism or Eastern Bloc communism, and they were kind of going their own way. So what happened, how this sort of evolved and really took hold, was in 1955, a conference was held in Bandung, Indonesia, where 29 different countries came together, representing approximately 54% of the world population at that time. It was representing, 1.5 billion people. Now, 1952. I mean, 1.5 billion is a drop in the bucket now, but it was more than half of the world population, all represented by these 29 countries that did not align themselves with either Western style capitalism, the first world, or Eastern style communism, the second world. And they full on embraced the term in this conference. They made a declaration that they were embracing this term, and that it was sort of a unifying point for them that, okay, this is the flag under which we're all standing together. And it evolved into the non-aligned movement, which again was a sort of loose agreement between African and Asian countries to sort of help each other along in the developing world. And these are all largely pre-industrialized countries. So that's where third world came from.
And
I've been listening, I've been keeping my ears out for that term, particularly like in news. And I've really noticed that it has dropped off and has been replaced by undeveloped or
developing countries.
Or developing countries. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because when you think about it, with that definition that you gave, the United States is a third world country.
At times and in places, it sure is. And it having first, second, third, it sounds like a ranking. It
definitely sounds like a caste system.
There's a hierarchy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. And, the one other term, Robert, that you should listen for as you're listening closely in the news is the BRIC nations.
Right. I've heard that.
BRIC. And that also denotes third world. What's interesting is BRIC is, if I remember right, it's Brazil. It may be Brazil, Russia, India, China. I'm not certain about the R. And that's the interesting thing about the third world designation is that all of those countries except Russia fell under the original third world designation, including, yes, China, which is,
I think
we think of China today, they're an industrial powerhouse.
They're leading the world right now. By the way, thank you, Wikipedia, for just telling me that BRIC does, in fact, stand for Brazil, Russia, India, and China. It's interesting to see Brazil brought in there because when you were first talking about first, second, third world nations and you were referring to, parts of the globe, South America didn't really enter into the discussion at all. Was
largely left out.
Yeah, exactly.
Of all of this. They were sort of left to fend for themselves very much under the heel of the United States.
Oh, well, we looked at all of that as just nothing but a continent worth of banana republics because of the way, we just looked down there and went, resources, trees, lots and lots of trees.
It was ours to exploit.
Yeah, but interesting nonetheless. I'm personally okay with moving away from a lot of these older pieces of nomenclature because they don't age well, and they do in their not aging well. They reveal a bias that was built into language that, as a language nerd, I'm never really happy about.
And meaning gets corrupted. The third world in its initial stages was a pretty it was a pretty benign term, and it rapidly became a very diminutive term.
Yeah, exactly. I tell you,
there's so many words, and Chris knows this.
Lots
There's
of
so
words.
many words that start.
All the words.
Lots of words. There's lots of words.
There's tons and tons of words out there.
Tons of words.
Matter of fact, I don't know most of them.
They all start somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know most of them.
And they all end up someplace else.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
that is true.
because language evolves, and language should evolve. And I think that that's something that people need to remember, is that language evolves, and that's something that as a culture, we're having a bit of a hard time accepting. A lot of people don't want language to evolve. They want everything to stay the same, and change makes them uncomfortable. Well, why can't I just keep calling you that? Well, because I don't want you to. Or because we have noticed that there's a bias implicit in that term, and we want to be more inclusive and we want to be more fair. And I'm not scared of that. And I look down my nose at people who are, because to me that means that you're being intellectually lazy. And I don't have a whole lot of time for it.
Right. I'm a very similar mind that, and I think part of it is, there's an assumption that we latch onto when we're young, that we complete our, 12 years of education, sometimes 16 years of education, whatever. And then it stops, and we know what we need to know, and we no longer have to keep learning.
Yeah,
we no longer have to keep up.
I've learned the things. Now I'm learned. And that's not how evolution works.
Well, right. And especially in the realm of things like language, meaning changes, meaning evolves, words change, words evolve. English is very much a living language, and it's prone to change.
Exactly. Well, I tell you what, we're going to be right back after this little blip message, whatever the hell it winds up being. I haven't actually designed it in Premiere yet, so I don't know what's coming up, but we'll be back on the other side of it. This is Keep Your Hat On. I'm Andy. That's Robert. That's Chris. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back. Really.
And we're back on Keep Your Hat On. I'm Andrew, or Andy. That's Robert, or Rob, or Ty, or Tony. And that's just Chris. And what I'm bringing to the table today is, throughout the pandemic and lockdown, many people have been expanding their bubble when it comes to keeping themselves entertained. I mean, I really wish I was an investor in Netflix last year, because that probably would have paid dividends. I'm unlike a lot of people in that I don't watch a lot of scripted television. Oh, I just banked my mic. Sorry. I don't watch a lot of scripted television. I don't watch a lot of series television anymore. I tend to focus... Well, no, I'll say this. I've grown tired of standardized commercial media. And not because it's not worth watching. There's plenty of stuff on TV that's still worth watching. But in going into the pandemic, I've really discovered that there's so much more content that's worth watching that's just not on big media channels. I mean, here we are on YouTube. We're trying to cut our own little niche out in it. There are talk shows. There are how-to shows. There are cooking shows. There are goofy things that people take immensely seriously. And one of the things I've discovered about myself is I really have been enjoying watching people take their nerd passions way to the next level. And that leads us to the next segment, where we are going to be talking about one of my favorite discoveries. And it's sort of a sport.
Sports, in air quotes.
That's right. Welcome to Sports in air quotes. It kind of has to be air quotes because it is a competition, sort of. And what I'm bringing to the table today is something that has given me an immense amount of joy. And this is die-cast car racing. Yeah, it's Hot Wheels.
You mean like Hot Wheels and Matchbox?
Hot Wheels, Matchbox. I'm old enough to remember the two biggies. I know
big-ass tracks.
Yeah, I know that there are other die-cast car manufacturers. That bit's news to me. But the rest of it is, I mean, I remember going back and speaking to our what did we do when it was a snow day. I spent plenty of time as a kid in Wisconsin in the frigid middle of January trying to get my floppy orange, goofy, stick together racetracks and to get my cars to defeat gravity.
Oh yeah, you're all over your room, up.
Oh yeah,
dangling from the dresser and running a bridge across to the bed and hanging from the light.
Oh, you know it.
Yeah,
I had like two or three that I would actually set up against the door so that it was straight down.
The death drop.
And I would try to get them to loop down and jump off like one that was, half a circle or around or something. Never quite worked. I didn't understand why they just kind of just went.
Yeah, I didn't have a grasp of physics then. Certainly not, rolling friction and inertia and centrifugal force and all that. As an older nerd now,
and hearing my full name, which meant, which meant that I was in trouble. And
yeah.
The words fucking cars out in the living room or on the stairs.
Right? Oh, yeah. My mother would never use blue language with me like that. But she had some interesting, I'm pretty sure that they were just made up words when she stepped on one of my cars. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
I think, now, my parents were not don't get me wrong, in the habit of using blue language.
There's something about stepping on.
And they've hurt themselves.
Yeah, there's something about injury that the rules change. They just
there's science around that. There is science around using swear words.
Yeah, using curse words. We will definitely cover that in a future episode of Keep Your Hat On, because you're right, and I've got a fabulous example of that involves science. That involves Brian Blessed of all people. But I discovered a channel on YouTube, it'll be linked down below, by a guy named 3D Bot Maker. And 3D Bot Maker has taken die-cast model racing. He has taken die-cast racing to the next level. And he has a fabulous little show reel about how he came to do this level of die-cast model car racing. And again, the thing that I find most appealing about this kind of content is when people take it to the next level of both quality and absurdity. This is completely absurd. This is nothing but gravity and friction and physics. But damn if you don't give a shit about those cars.
I'll bet you his kids think it's really, really cool.
Again, you'll watch the show reel and you'll understand that we have his kids to thank for the entire thing, because he was entertaining his kids and went, I can do something more with this. Yeah, I can do something more with this.
I literally winced when I saw that Charger getting all beaten up.
Oh yeah. But
I mean, even and that's what's kind of magical about that is about what he's doing is, intellectually and consciously, you're looking at this and you're looking at little die-cast cars. And,
you're looking at a $6 investment. There are still plenty of husks of cheap steel cars buried under a particular tree in southeastern Wisconsin that are entombed because of me.
Okay, so what's the worst thing that you did to one of your Hot Wheels?
Oh, it was definitely I had a very precious to a friend of mine. At a very precious 1972 Satellite, a Plymouth Satellite, or wait, was it Dodge? Dodge did the Satellite. No, Dodge did the Dart. Plymouth did the Satellite. Regardless, it was a Satellite. And the story involves a hacksaw, a vise, and my desire to see a convertible satellite. And the whole thing didn't end well. And there was a black eye involved in this story. And I'm just saying right now that my left eye is fine.
There you go.
But watching him do his, and I mean, we are talking production levels that the Le Mans would be proud of. Multiple cameras, chase camera, at least handheld. This guy puts a fabulous amount of time into his environment and his model building. And it's a shit ton of fun. It is just a lot of fun. And I'm all about just having fun right now. Everybody else has got, their British baking show, which I also enjoy. Up. But that's just it. When I'm winding down at the end of the day, I don't really want to be mentally challenged anymore. I don't want to be, I just want something fun. I want to feel like I'm hanging with friends that I can't currently now actually physically see. And I do like competition. But the one thing that I've discovered about myself is I'm not huge on the standard competition that gets put out there for entertainment. I sure as the hell don't want a bunch of pumped up toxic masculinity. I don't want a bunch of people screaming up and down at each other unless it's hyperbolic. I'm kind of over that. I need something to let off a little bit of steam, something that I'm going to care about, maybe, but at the same time, not necessarily care about also works. And the 3D Bot Maker, from everybody here at the podcast at Keep Your Hat On, we salute you. You're doing a fantastic job. Links below down to his channel. And keep doing it, dude. I think you should be watching your mail soon because I might be sponsoring a car.
Hey, Chris.
What?
We love it.
What's the worst thing that you ever did to a car?
Worst thing I ever did to a car. Actually, it did remarkably little harm to the car itself. But the worst thing I did, my friends and I, we stuffed as many lady fingers as we could into the windows of
firecrackers for people who couldn't get real firecrackers. Firecrackers for people who did not have a truck driver in their life.
I think.
Oh, you put enough of them together.
Taking off fingers.
Yeah. Well, and we wanted to do an M80, but it was just too big.
Well, an M80 is the size of a matchbox.
Yes, exactly. And so we stuffed them into the windows of, I'm pretty sure it was a Incredible Hulk edition greased gremlin.
Oh, that's money. That's money now, son. I'm so sorry.
I know. And
well spent.
The reason it was the worst thing that I ever did to a Matchbox car is, again, the car largely survived. I mean, it kind of flopped up in the air and that was kind of entertaining. But we were standing close enough that one of us really probably could have gotten very seriously hurt, but we were little kids and stupid.
Robert, what's the worst thing you did? Since you brought it up.
Yeah. It was, I think it was a Charger. Had to do with, well, we were experimenting. We were trying to see what it would look like before we filmed it. We never did film it.
Oh, that's a missed opportunity.
Well,
that was royalty-free content we could have used on this podcast.
It had to do with lighter fluid.
Oh, there you go.
A moving car,
right,
in a field, and there may or may not have been a small brush fire involved.
Yeah. I've got small brush fires in my family history as well.
The want to film that then just kind of went away.
Yeah, melted away in light of the flames and
the urge to run.
Exactly.
Yes. And having to tell parents, Yeah, I'm not really sure.
What solar flare was it? I don't know. It must have been a meteorite. It was a meteorite.
Space lasers.
Anyways, I tell you what, we'll be right back after whatever the hell this next thing is. This is Keep Your Hat On. I'm Andrew. That's Chris. That's Robert. And we don't know where we're going to wind up, and neither do you. We'll be right back. And we're back. This is Keep Your Hat On, the show where even we don't know where we're going to go. And next up, this is the segment that we call
Lamest Conspiracy Ever.
So what do you got for us, Robert?
Well, let's talk about this. Does Australia really exist?
Does what?
Yeah.
You mean the island continent in the South Pacific?
Yeah.
Last time I checked.
The place where the British sent their criminals.
You're getting close. Yeah.
Well, I'm not getting close. I'm still in Portland.
Oh, Chris is, yeah.
Chris is still in Portland too. I can hit him from here.
So okay. Obviously, there's an answer here that we're not expecting. I mean, I would assume.
Just let me read this out loud to you.
All right, we'll link down below.
Link in the comments.
Know your meme.
Right? Okay.
So the original post read like this. Australia is not real. It's a hoax. Made up for us to believe that Britain moved over their criminals to someplace. In reality, all these criminals were loaded off the ships into the waters, drowning before they could see land ever again. Yeah.
That's not very British.
It's not.
That's harsh. Yeah.
In reality, no, this is the criminals, so they could never see land again. It's a cover-up for one of the greatest mass murders in history, made by one of the most prominent empires. Australia does not exist. All things that you call proof were actually well-fabricated lies and documents made by the leading governments of the world. Your Australia friends? Yeah, they're all actors and computer-generated personas, part of the plot to trick the world.
So instead of crisis actors, does that make these people crikey actors? Had to. Had to.
Well done.
Thank you very much. I do 2 shows, 7 and 9:30. Try the deal.
Okay. So what you're describing here, what you're describing here is one hell of a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Because not only does it, I mean, do you have the conspiracy in time of the British prison ships and the cover-up, but it's a transgenerational conspiracy. And everybody has to buy into it.
That's just it. And transnational too. You got to get all the rest of the world to play along with this, except for maybe the third world nations.
And so you're banking on everybody who knows about it not spilling the beans.
Absolutely.
Wow. That's a lot of faith.
The thing about that, though, is does it really take generations after generations? If you just pass it down to an elite few, after a few generations, nobody's really going to know unless the top echelon of the government is, of the empire is
the elite few
taking care of it. Once it's all in place, right? You just leave it in place.
Isn't that its own conspiracy theory, though, that we have to revisit?
We're just going down this rabbit hole. So
Trilateral Commission. It's the Illuminati.
Gotta tell you, man, if Australia really doesn't exist, that's a hell of a snow job, and it has taken a lot of man hours.
Well, except for the fact that there's not a whole lot of snow in Australia, I don't think ever. But that's a different topic. What happens if you get in a boat and accidentally run into it?
So, here's the deal: if you think you've ever been to Australia, you're terribly wrong.
Okay.
The plane pilots are all in on this. And I would assume that the ship captains are
the pilot cabal.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. They're all in on it, and have in actuality only flown you to islands close, nearby, or in some cases, parts of South America. So Australia really lives in South America.
Oh, because they're so similar.
Oh, exactly.
So there's I picture this thing going on in the red carpet club at the airport where the pilots are wink nudging each other doing I'm going to Australia today.
Time to head to Sydney.
Yeah.
I'm gonna fly. But what about things like kangaroos and wombats? And
I would refer you back to the computer generated, and they had computers back then.
This whole thing unravels. Well, like all good conspiracies, this whole thing unravels with literally just blowing on a thread.
Look,
okay,
so they've cleared some space and hired actors to act out real Australians.
So let me ask.
Wait a minute, Australians aren't real.
I've got two questions, and I think you've already sort of started to answer the first one. So do Australians speak with an accent when there's nobody else around?
Or do they all just start sounding like posh?
That's a really good.
Like posh Brits from Exeter.
Kind of like the tree that falls in the forest when nobody's around.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there are some method actors that tend to stay in character.
Oh man, hey, you can never argue with Daniel Day-Lewis about shoes.
Well, and that begs true, and that begs an earlier question or a leading question of how did they come up with the Australian accent? Who agreed on it?
You know what? I bet you Australia or not Australians because
they don't exist.
But Austrians, I bet you when some Austrians, they're in a pub somewhere. They've had one too many pints. They're starting to slur their words. We got to quit going down this road. We're going to get a bunch of hate mail.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
And the reality is they do exist.
They do exist. Well, to all our future friends in Australia, we love you. Australia does exist. We love Australia. I actually have been known to enjoy a Foster's every once in a while.
And you just hit on my preferred method of popping the bubble on this conspiracy theory.
Kylie
which is
Minogue?
very simply no.
Well, come on.
Olivia Newton-John.
Oh, you're right. That's more our all right, fine.
More our generation.
I'm showing my age. Yeah, exactly.
But no, it's where does Foster's come from if Australia doesn't exist?
There are so many jokes I could be saying right now.
Put in a can by a man in a factory downtown.
Oh man.
So to continue
Foster's
with
comes from desperation is what.
Let's to continue reading this post. Australia is one of the biggest hoaxes ever created. You have all been tricked. Join the movement today. Make it known that they have all been deceived. Make it known that this has all just been a cover-up. The things these Australians say to be doing, all these swear words and actions based on alcoholism, MDMA, and bad decision. Right?
Wait, what did Molly get in this discussion?
Wow.
No, this is actually in the original post. I found, even though it's been removed from Facebook, I found a copy of the original post. Let me go through that again. Join the movement today and make it known that they have all been deceived. Make it known that this has all been a cover-up. The things these Australians says, and it doesn't say plural Australians, it says Australian, says to be doing, all these swear words and actions based on alcoholism, MDMA, and bad decisions are all ways to distract you from the ugly truth that this is one of the greatest genocides in history. 162,000 people were said to have been transported to this imaginary land during a mere 80 years. And they are all long dead by now, excuse me. They never reached that promised land. Tell the truth, stand up for what is right, make sure to spread the world. And it does say spread the world. Australia is not real.
This person is a wordsmith.
It's a code word for the cold-blooded murder of more than 100,000 people. And it is not okay. We will not accept this. Stand up for the ones who died. Let it be known that Australia doesn't exist. And that's
okay.
Yeah, I don't know where the bad decisions, I can see the alcoholism.
Well, look,
where
alcohol...
the Molly and the bad decisions
Alcohol, Molly, and bad decisions just describes my 20s.
Right? Right?
So, well, and as I'm listening, I'm sitting here and my mind is reeling with thinking about all of the risk games I have to go back and concede victory on.
Oh, man.
Because my strategy was always to start with Australia.
Get your Air Force in Australia. Get your air units in Australia.
Right? It was the easiest thing to defend and build up.
Yeah.
Yeah, only one point of entry.
This island nation, yeah. Well, look, we got...
Well, so I just wanted to go... that was the post. We just kind of went through the post, right? That was the original post. Now I kind of wanted to give a little bit of backstory on it.
Oh, we're not done?
Oh, no.
Well, you can't have a 40-minute segment, so get this thing buttoned up.
So this is actually... What this is about is I think she was 15 at a time, and I'm not gonna put her name out. You can easily find it on the web. It'll be in one of the articles that I linked to. She basically was having a conversation with one of her Australian friends, and her Australian friend didn't like the Smiths, and she just couldn't understand that, and so has a rebuttal. She said, well, Australia doesn't exist. And she went wild with it on Facebook, posted it, and it just took off from there. I think in 2 weeks, there was like 2,300 people had reshared it.
About when was this historically? Is this like...
This is about 2017.
So it's only a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Everything that I've found anyway, if it was any earlier, I don't know about it. But apparently it was about 2017. And so she got a bunch of pushback, people calling her really bad names, some death threats.
Thanks, interwebs.
Just for saying Australia doesn't exist.
Just for saying Australia. I mean, she just kind of went on that rant that we just went through.
Facetiously, obviously facetiously saying Australia doesn't exist.
Absolutely.
And she's getting hauled on the carpet.
So when you were talking about the wordsmithing and her, she did this all on purpose. Misspelling the words or past tense.
Oh, method of the madness. Okay.
This was all a wink and a nod.
Right.
People took it a little bit too seriously. But you know what? I am never going to tell somebody that I don't like the Smiths again.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Andrew, do you have a good vanishing effect? Can we get like 2 shots of me here talking and then just my empty chair? And
just so long as you set up
crossfade.
Just so long as you set up your empty chair properly, yeah.
I am happy to put it out there in the world. I do not like the Smiths.
Something that I just want us to link to, we're going to put a link into it.
Down below. Links down below.
Down below. We're going to put a link to a very, very hilarious, or I found funny, Australian response, which simply says that Australia is the only country that exists.
And with that, we're going to wrap it up for this, our debut premiere episode thing of Keep Your Hat On. I'm Andrew Scott, along with my good friends Robert Anthony and Chris Vicano. And again, we don't know what this is going to be. We're doing this for ourselves, but we'd like you to come along, come hang out with us. Click like and subscribe down below. We'll try to keep you up to date on when we're doing another one. We're trying to do it on the regular, but as with all things in the COVID-19 pandemic pastiche of life, we got no fucking clue. So we will talk to you all again really soon. Until next time, everybody, keep your hat on. We may end up miles from here like we just did. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you guys again. Be good.
Cheers.
Well, there's a chunk of time you can't get back. From Portland, Oregon, this has been Keep Your Hat On, a big little show about a whole lot of nothing in particular. Keep Your Hat On is a narrowband broadcast network production in association with PodSquadPDX.com. Andrew Scott, executive producer. Robert Anthony and Chris Vicano, associate producers. Our theme music was written and produced by Andrew Scott, along with help from Ron Kajawa. Website design and maintenance by Vicano Creative, Chris Vicano Webmaster, available at VicanoCreative.com. Audio and video production by Andrew Scott, available at AndrewScottMedia.com. Got ideas or comments for the show? Email us at talkback@kyhopodcast.com, and don't forget to like, click, and subscribe. On behalf of the boys, I'm your announcer, Michael Brumage. Thanks for listening. I guess.
What do you want? What?
Cat.
I'm doing stuff.
Cat.
Okay, I'm back.
NBBN.
The Narrowband Broadcast Network.
The focus is on you.